Hey, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to Upkick MMA episode 406. I am Brendan. Holy crap, that's a lot of episodes. All right, we are going to talk about UFC 303, Prochazka versus Pereira 2. All right, we're going to break that down. We're going to break down all of the main card here, go over all the fights round by round, talk about some wonky-ass decisions on the main card. Nope, decisions were on the prelims. We're going to talk about some weird stuff, maybe some future implications, see what's going on. If you like this kind of thing, subscribe to the channel. That way, when the next video is coming out, I'd appreciate it. If you like this video, hit the like button. Let's get started. Alex Pereira taking on Jiri Procházka for the second time. Procházka just looked out of sorts. By the way, this card was absolute ass. I can't pick out a single fight on here where anybody really put their best foot forward and that we got the best experience that we could have. It felt like a lot of the short notice fights really put a damper on things. We'll talk about those when we get to them. I mean, this is relatively short notice too, being thrown in here. Alex Pereira, Procházka is looking to counter the low kick with a lead left hook, but he's got to be wary of the power that's coming back at him. Pereira's going in with a ton of low kicks, and Procházka's finding the mark with that right hand, but he's just waiting way too much. He got outstruck here 27-7. I mean, Pereira ended this first round with a left hook that dropped Procházka, and then the second round he ends him with a head kick. So, I mean, people are trying to say, like, oh, what's next for Pereira? Like, does he step up? Does he take on someone else in another division? The problem is he got the fast track. Listen, Pereira has Dana White privilege and maybe Joe Rogan privilege, if you want to call it that, right? And it's not that he's not a good fighter. He absolutely is. He's doing what he needs to do in there to get the wins, right? The split decision win against Jan Blachowicz, I don't think that he won that one. It seemed like he should have lost that one, right? And that's how he got put in a position to get the title, right? I mean, he should have lost that one. The controversial win over the first Procházka one, was he winning that fight? Yeah, absolutely. But was that fight stopped way too early? Again, absolutely. Jamal Hill, again, controversy. Steps on he waves off a nut shot, steps on his foot, and then gets position that he probably wouldn't have got unless Jamal Hill, if Jamal Hill was still paying attention. And yes, it's on Jamal Hill. He needed to pay attention, but the fight, you can't do this thing where the referee steps in kind of, and then you wave him off, and then he doesn't. Right? When he came into the league, how many wrestlers has he faced? Michaelides? No, absolutely not. Bruno Silva? Absolutely not. Sean Strickland? Absolutely not. Israel Adesanya? Absolutely not. Gets knocked out by Israel Adesanya? Absolutely not. Jan Blachowicz wrestled him down. Not a wrestler, by the way. Not a wrestler. Good fighter. Jan is just not a wrestler. Jiri, not a wrestler. Jamal Hill, not a wrestler. So this whole thing, Rogan mentioned it, right? He goes, "Oh man, I was really worried when he came into the UFC. I was worried about how he would do against wrestlers." We still don't know. And the thing is, he's gotten the fast track to the title at 185, or he got the fast track to the title at 185 because of his storyline with Adesanya. Gets the title, right, in a fight that he was losing. He was losing that fight, and then gets the finish in that last round. Again, a controversial finish. It shouldn't have been stopped when it was. And then he gets knocked out in his next one. Everybody waves that one off like it didn't happen. Goes up a weight class, gets a split decision win, and then wins the title against Jiri in a controversial one. A Jamal Hill win, again, more controversial, but not as much. And then this last Jiri Procházka one, stepping on short notice. Great. This is a great finish. This is probably his best win in the UFC since Sean Strickland. Okay. Since 2 years ago, this is his best win. Also right around the same time. Yeah. So it's interesting to sit here and say he's running out of contenders, but he hasn't fought anybody. Right? He hasn't fought anybody in the light heavyweight division. Hasn't taken on Magomed Ankalaev, hasn't taken on Rakic or Krylov or Johnny Walker. Okay, Johnny Walker just lost. Didn't have to fight Khalil Roundtree or Ozdemir coming off that win. Anthony Smith obviously just coming off a loss this week, but all these guys, these mainstays in the division, he didn't have to fight. He got to skip after what I would call a mediocre run to the title. Sean Strickland was his only legit win until he got to Adesanya, and they, like I said, they fast tracked him. They wanted him to face. It's very Conor McGregor-esque, but he just doesn't have the personality that allows him to elevate the sport or bring the new fans in like Conor McGregor did. So, dude, I said this a few weeks ago. Can we stop with hey, let's fight another? Can I go up a weight class, 3 belts, this and that? Fight the people in the division. Stop abandoning the divisions. It's so annoying. And then his first call out after he got the belt, what did he say? He's like, I'm going to take on Israel Adesanya. Come up to 205. What the fuck is that? Why? Why is that the call out? Unreal. I mean, Jiri Procházka was never, the light heavyweight division has been in shambles since John Jones left. And I don't mean, there's just been a lot of parity. So to have someone stay in here and dominate all the contenders as they come up, to really solidify themselves as the best light heavyweight in the world, definitively against all contenders, would be a nice change of pace. Okay. So I would like it if Alex Pereira just took on some light heavyweight contenders for a while, right? If he beats them all back, then fine. Then, we're going to talk about him going up to heavyweight or whatever. He ain't fighting John Jones ain't fighting him. John Jones doesn't give a shit. We've seen it. He's holding up the heavyweight division now like he did the light heavyweight division. So stay in the light heavyweight division, please. Fight people in the light heavyweight division. Beat back all of the contenders. Let's get a wrestler in there, although there aren't too many. But that's what we need. That's what we need here. We don't need these champions just bouncing divisions and going back and forth. It doesn't add any prestige to the belts when they're essentially just traded between divisions. All right. That's enough of that one. Let's talk about another short notice fight. I don't know if you could get more short notice in this one. Dan Ige stepping in on short notice against Diego Lopes. Lopes is good, man. This kid is really, really, really good. He's got some weaknesses and he's got some holes in his game. But, Ige stepping up on short notice wasn't able to get the job done. Brian Ortega couldn't make it to the fight because he was sick. No judgments here. He might have had. He sounded like they said he had a fever of 103. Anyway, so he said he had a fever of 103, and whatever. I hope he gets better. It's unfortunate that happened. It's interesting that they decided to keep this on the card because this card, like I said, was doomed from the beginning. This card was shit. This reminded me of like UFC 200, where all of these fights were supposed to happen, and then all of them fell out. John Jones was supposed to fight on it, couldn't do it. Anderson Silva had to step up. Brock Lesnar's coming in, and then shit, he fails a drug test later. That was a later thing, but they brought Brock Lesnar in, I think, to save that card. It was just a shit show, man, and that's what this was. Brian Ortega couldn't make the weight, like I said, or couldn't make it because he was sick. Lopes trying to unload as Ige shells up. Ige with the slow and measured start, trying to draw out the attacks, just waiting a lot. That was the story of the night for a lot of these fighters, just waiting. A lot of output from Lopes. He's not landing most of it, but he was throwing way more out there and landing more than Ige was. Ige goes for a takedown, falls into a guillotine, and then a darce, but he's okay. That ends the round there. It looked like a feeling out round for Ige, and Lopes with his volume just got out in front of him. 22-9 for striking numbers there. Easy round for Lopes to score. Second round here, it gets interesting. Ige is waiting on a lot of Lopes landing a decent low kick and countering the jab. Ige throws a high kick and then falls, and then Lopes on the back for the rest of the round. So here's why it's interesting. This did happen earlier in the night. We'll talk about that one. If you look at what happened in the second round and then the third round, this fight essentially got decided because of Ige throwing a high kick and then misplacing it and not bringing it back. Right? It's on him. Lopes did kind of catch it, but it really just sat. It hit Lopes and then got caught on the shoulder, and then he fell down. Ige fell down. And that's essentially what led to Lopes getting this whole round, because we saw what happened in the next round. Ige needs to finish, and he's pressuring, trying to find it. They exchange hooks. Ige's pressing him to the fence. So it's 20. I had a 20-18 in favor of Lopes. Lots of control time. I mean, he had, 3 minutes of control time. Did outstrike him, but that wasn't the story of the second round. They exchange hooks in the second round. Ige is landing that nasty right hand. Low kicks from Lopes hurts Ige's leg. He attempts a takedown, and you can tell he really wants to coast, but Ige just will not let him. Lopes shoots from super far away, looking to get it to the ground just to try and survive this last round, essentially. Like, he's still throwing stuff out there. I mean, he landed 15 shots, but you could tell that he wanted to go to the ground. He did not want to strike with Ige anymore. And it sucks because I have a feeling if Ige doesn't fall on that kick in the second round, he could have won this one. Outstruck him here 25-15. Clearly better as the fight went on. Started to feel things out. It looked like he started to warm up is what happened. Yeah, his leg was compromised for a moment there, but other than that, in the third round, he kind of owned that third round. So, like I said, Lopes, crazy talented, got a lot of upside. I hope that they give him someone. If they throw him right into the deep end and he can't swim, you're going to be ruining what I consider to be an amazing prospect. So let's gauge what you got from this performance, kind of challenge him with someone who has good cardio and good pressure. I would challenge him with someone like that to try and see if he can work on those things and outdo those. Find someone with a good chin, good pressure, maybe not punching power, and good cardio. Let him take them out. And if he can get past that, and you can see that he can work for 3 rounds, maybe give him a main event, see how he performs in the 4th and 5th round. So you can kind of, groom him to become a title contender, because Diego Lopes is legit. He's really good. All right, Anthony Smith taking on Roman Dolidze, who stepped up on short notice. Again, another short notice fight, and it looked like it. Both guys getting tired, both guys looking like crap. Like the things that Smith does drive me crazy. He stepped up on short notice to take a fight in here anyway, and he wasn't supposed to fight Dolidze. I even forget who he was supposed to fight. This card changed so much. Kicks from Dolidze, keeping Smith at range. Neither guy opening up big, with Smith walking him down, just waiting. Again, lots of waiting. Seems like Smith's kicks are doing more when they land, and Dolidze doesn't like them, but he's not throwing them as much. Dolidze is throwing them more. Not a lot going on in this round with Smith waiting way too much. So 22-18 in favor of Dolidze for striking numbers. Up top, the head strikes, 2 more to Smith, 6-4. The leg kicks, Dolidze landed more of them. Could you give this to Smith for the amount of damage he did? Possibly. I wouldn't. I gave this one to Dolidze. You could make the argument. I think that would be a pretty sketchy argument. Second round, overextends and Smith falls over and Dolidze on top. Right? Dolidze thinks he hurt him and tries to get the finish. Smith does this all the time. He just sits in these positions, sits in turtle, sits in these safe jiu-jitsu positions, and he, doesn't get up until there's 20 seconds left in the round. He spent 3 minutes and 30 seconds on the ground. He didn't really land anything after that. The striking number is 48-11, but this, again, just totally dominates the position with Dolidze on top, 20-18. Last round here, Smith is still waiting. Now he's trying to counter, and he's tired. And then Smith outlanding him in the last round. Smith gets this last round. I thought he outlanded him. I guess he did. 30-22 in favor of Dolidze. Very boring fight. Would not recommend you go back and watch this one. Or the Ige Lopes one wasn't a bad fight. The main event at least ended mercifully early. But guys, this card sucked. Both in possibility, but it sucked in possibility, and it also sucked in execution, in entertainment value. This thing sucked. It was bad to watch. If you're going to go watch something, the prelims were better than the main card here for a lot of reasons, and we'll get to that in the next video, but the prelims were a better watch. All right. This fight was kind of boring and then got stopped. Macy Chiasson taking on Mayra Silva. Not a fan of Mayra Bueno Silva. Never have been. I think she spends more time saying things don't hurt her than she does with actual offense. And Macy Chiasson, yeah, she's okay. This is bottom of the barrel type of stuff here, guys. I know Bueno Silva just fought for the title, but bantamweight is in shambles, similar to light heavyweight. It just, without a dominant champion at the top who's scary and beating everybody back, you kind of notice the weakness in the division. And it's just not there depth-wise, skill-wise, entertainment value. It's just not there. The strawweights are even starting to kind of thin out, but the strawweights at least have those things, right? They have more depth. They have more skill. And then some of those strawweights blow up, and they go up to flyweight. And, the flyweight division is doing okay, but it's thinning out. That's why it's thinning out the strawweight division. The bantamweights, man, you just don't have the depth. Don't have the entertainment value there. Chiasson landing with the looping left and Silva landing with the front kick and the knee. Silva able to apply pressure, finding the mark with the left hand and getting into the clinch. And Silva's sitting down on her shots, getting in tight on these clinches, landing knees. Chiasson landing with some volume. Silva firing back. Active first round. Obviously, I give it to Silva. Both she outlanded her and had the bigger shots, 42-37. Relatively entertaining, I guess, compared to what could have been or what we saw later in the night. But Chiasson with the volume and Silva keeping up, and then Chiasson with the takedown, landing a nasty elbow and a big cut on Silva. Silva going for the armbar, nothing there. This is a nasty, nasty cut. So much so, like a cut above the eye, where there's a chunk of meat that was hanging off. Right? There's a chunk of meat where the cut's down to the bone. Right? And then the doctor comes in and is like, I don't know, it's pretty deep. It's up to you. And Chris Tognoni is like, well, what are we doing? And he's like, well, it's up to you. And then he just goes, it's too deep. It's too deep. And he weighs it off. Now, Rogan initially said, he's like, it's just blood. Here's my takeaway. I understand that he said that live and he probably didn't think of contextually what he was saying, but let's think about this in history. Okay? Like I said, when you have a cut that's so deep that a piece of your face, right, a giant chunk of flesh is hanging off, like where if a finger gets in there and pulls down, you could actually rip off a decent amount of flesh. I think that's bad. That's bad enough to call it. Whether or not it's hindering your fight or hitting your ability to fight, because it was bleeding into the eye because there was so much blood, but not even that. Just a safe losing a piece of you in the octagon is not allowed, right? You can't have that. You can't have a finger falling off. You can't have your arm dislocated. You can't have. They stopped. Was it Ashley Evans Smith? No, it wasn't. I forget who it was that got punched in the ear and it exploded, and then their ear was hanging and dangling off, right? And they stopped it, and she was upset that they stopped it. But Rogan's like, well, you can't have that. Her ear is literally falling off. Same thing here. A chunk of flesh is on the verge of falling off, right? It wasn't dangling yet, but you could tell, like, it was disconnected. Go back and watch it and go look at it if you don't believe me. That's a fine stoppage. I don't have a problem with that. I don't think it's people being squeamish. I don't think it's a sexism thing, like this is women and that's why they stopped it. I don't think it's any of that. I think if you have a cut that's down to the bone in a place where you're, like, one, it can get into the eye. Two, it's likely to be touched by a hand again, and there could be fingers that go in there and possibly pull away a giant chunk of flesh off your body. I think that warrants a stoppage. We've seen bone before, like on kicks. Like we've seen it where somebody kicks away all of the skin and flesh on their shin bone, and they're just left with the bone there. I think that's almost as bad, but barring infection. But we're always dealing with that with cuts anyway. I think that one is more acceptable to allow than the one where your eyebrow is essentially going to fall off. So. Not a bad doctor stoppage. Sucks for Mayra Bueno Silva. She obviously wanted to continue. But, Chiasson landed that elbow. Oh, here. This is really funny. I was actually thinking about this the other day. So, I was one of Rogan's podcasts before. They were talking about how in Pride that they allowed everything, but they didn't allow elbows. Like, how stupid is that? Well, this is why I say it's not stupid. Look at this. This fight would not have been stopped if that elbow didn't cause a cut. Right? It didn't knock her out. Didn't stop the fight from continuing. Literally got stopped because that elbow landed and made a cut. When you allow elbows, and they don't allow it in the PFL either. When you allow elbows, you increase the risks of cuts, which increase recovery time and increase the possibility of the fight getting stopped because of skin durability. It's not that you can't cause cuts with other things. It's that elbows are easier to throw, can be controlled in a manner to forcefully create a cut, and can be landed from so many more positions than a head kick, or like a shin to the head or a knee to the head, right? That's what I'm saying. And they're sharper. Like, elbows tend to be much sharper than the knee. It comes to a finer point. The forearm here, I think that's the radius. That might be the radius on there. I don't know if it's the radius or ulna. Sorry. It's very sharp to the touch. You can feel it, and when it hits skin and slides off of it like that, man, you're looking for a cut. So if you go out there looking to cut your opponent, and that's your goal, I say there's nothing wrong with that. If you go out there looking to kick your opponent's knee backwards and, dislocate their knee, as much as I don't like it, I don't disagree with that either. It's an available technique. You can go for it. But as an organization, I don't have a problem with it, by the way. I don't have a problem with elbows. I understand why they're allowed. It makes sense to me. But I understand also why Pride didn't allow them. It allows fighters to fight more often and fights to go on further without stopping due to cuts. So I'm understanding of why they would do that, but I'm also like why they would ban that stuff. But I'm on the page of like, if it's an available technique, you should use it. So anyway, that's my sidebar on that. Like, that's why Pride didn't allow them. All right, Ian Machado Garry versus Michael Venom Page. Horrible. You guys all want to talk about how bad Brendan Schaub is and how much you guys don't like him. Like, you can talk about all the shit you want about him. Am I the biggest fan of everything that he does? Absolutely not. But everybody wants to point out when he fails. Everybody wants to point out when he says stupid shit. Nobody wants to point out stuff, even if it's obvious, when he says the correct thing. He called this. He said, Ian Garry's the guy. He thinks he's going to beat him. And he said, when you get two strikers out there like this, it's going to be boring. What did we have? Boring fight with Garry doing the winning. Garry catches a kick and gets the treetop, and he gets on top of him. That's the whole round. He got a submission attempt in here, but this round sucked. It sucked. Second round. More interesting, but still also sucked. Great right hand from Venom Page as he enters. Garry's standing and waiting as Page darts in, landing right hands at the end of range, doing a great job at distance management for the most part. He overswings and gets caught at one point in the clinch, but he gets out of it, gets back up with 45 seconds left, able to land. He's the only one who really landed damage. 14-9 here. The stuff that Garry landed, it was not very damaging, and yes, he had control time here, but that should not count for him. 19-19 going in the third round. Garry tries to clinch up, ends up on bottom. They get back up with 2:10 left. Literally, oh my God, if Page just wanted to be a boring fighter and just stayed there, he could have won this fight. But Garry goes right for the takedown, gets to the back, and then that's it. He stays on the back. It doesn't really get a submission attempt in here. Doesn't really do anything with it. But he landed enough strikes. There was only 8-5. Page didn't land enough damage to outweigh all the stuff that, outweigh the damage that came back at him enough to where he could win this round with all the grappling that happened. Even though he had his own control time, minute and 30 seconds, Garry just had the back, which is a more dominant position. And dude, this fight sucked. Looking at the scorecards, what do we got? Oh, I didn't look at the Anthony Smith one. I told you, Junichiro Kamijo gave that first round to Anthony Smith. I told you. Don't agree with that one though. All right, everybody. Derek Clearly, Saul D'Amato, and Chris Lee, the Dream Team, scoring it exactly how I did. So, what does this mean for Michael Venom Page? Does it mean he's done? Does it mean Garry's the best? No. I think Garry showed another wrinkle in his game that he can out wrestle a guy who is horrible at wrestling. He is improving in that aspect. So hopefully, that carries forward. It would have been nice to see Garry's chin tested again by Page to see if he has improved that. I mean, but that's the thing. Maybe he's improved his head movement to really deal with that kind of stuff and the fact that Page wasn't able to find him. But he's not a bruiser. He doesn't get inside range, which is something that does give Garry problems. So overall, shit night of fights. Do not go watch this. I would not spend money to go watch this. If you already did, sorry. It sucks, man. This one sucked. The prelims are more worth your time. If you like this kind of stuff, subscribe to the channel. That way the next video is coming out. I'm done with this. We don't need to talk about it. We don't need to belabor the point. This shit sucked. Hope you guys have an amazing week. Happy 4th of July. Love y'all.